What if one of the most important scientific achievements in human history was also one of the most dangerous? What if the same discovery that helped end a world war also created a threat that still exists today? This is the true story behind Oppenheimer, the man, the science, and the reality behind the movie. The film Oppenheimer, directed by Christopher Nolan, tells the story of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the physicist who became known as the father of the atomic bomb. The movie focuses on his role in the Manhattan Project, the secret program that developed the first nuclear weapons during World War II. But to understand what really happened, we need to look beyond the cinematic version and into the real historical events. J. Robert Oppenheimer was born in 1904 in New York City. He was an extremely intelligent child who showed early talent in science and languages. As a young man, he studied at some of the most prestigious universities in the world, including Harvard, Cambridge, and Göttingen. By his early 30s, he had already earned a reputation as one of the brightest theoretical physicists of his generation. Despite his brilliance, Oppenheimer was known as a complex and sometimes troubled individual. He struggled with anxiety, emotional pressure, and a deep need to prove himself. These traits would later play a significant role in how he handled the enormous responsibility placed on him during the war. When World War II began, the fear that Nazi Germany might develop nuclear weapons pushed the United States to start a top-secret research program. This became known as the Manhattan Project. Its goal was simple in theory but incredibly complex in reality: to build an atomic bomb before anyone else could. Oppenheimer was chosen to lead the scientific effort, even though he had no prior experience managing large teams. The military believed that his intellect, vision, and ability to connect different scientific disciplines made him the right person for the job. One of his first major decisions was choosing a remote location for the project. This led to the creation of Los Alamos, a secret laboratory in New Mexico. Scientists, engineers, and their families were brought there under strict secrecy. Many of them did not even know what they were working on at first. Life at Los Alamos was strange and isolated. People lived under constant surveillance, letters were censored, and everyone used code names. Despite this, the environment became one of the most intense centers of scientific collaboration in history. The scientists worked on solving problems that had never been tackled before. They had to understand nuclear fission, control chain reactions, and design a weapon powerful enough to release enormous energy in a fraction of a second. The pressure was extreme, as the outcome of the war seemed to depend on their success. The movie shows Oppenheimer as both inspired and haunted, and this portrayal is largely accurate. He was deeply fascinated by physics, but increasingly conflicted about the consequences of his work. Colleagues later described him as brilliant, charismatic, and emotionally fragile. In July 1945, the team conducted the first successful nuclear test in the New Mexico desert. It was called the Trinity Test. When the bomb exploded, it released a blinding flash of light and a massive shockwave. Many witnesses were stunned into silence. Oppenheimer later recalled a line from the ancient Hindu text, the Bhagavad Gita, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." This quote, featured prominently in the movie, reflects his internal struggle after witnessing the power of what they had created. Shortly after, atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, leading to Japan's surrender and the end of World War II. The bombings caused immense destruction and loss of life, and their moral implications are still debated today. While the movie focuses heavily on Oppenheimer's emotional reaction, the real aftermath was even more complex. Many scientists involved in the project began questioning whether the weapon should ever be used again. Some pushed for international control of nuclear weapons, fearing a future arms race. Oppenheimer himself became an advocate for regulation and restraint. He opposed the development of the hydrogen bomb, which was even more powerful than the atomic bomb. This stance put him in conflict with political and military leaders during the early years of the Cold War. During the 1950s, fear of communism dominated American politics. Oppenheimer's past associations with left-wing groups and individuals became a major issue. Although he had never been a spy, his loyalty was questioned. In 1954, he was subjected to a highly controversial security hearing. The government revoked his security clearance, effectively ending his influence in nuclear policy. The hearing was widely criticized as unfair and politically motivated. The movie portrays this period as a personal and professional downfall, and that portrayal is largely accurate. Oppenheimer was deeply affected by the loss of his status and the public humiliation he endured. He remained a respected scientist but was pushed out of decision-making roles. Despite this, his legacy continued to grow. Over time, historians began to view him as a tragic figure, a man who helped change the world but struggled with the consequences of that change. In 2022, decades after his death, the U.S. government officially reversed the decision to revoke his security clearance, acknowledging that the process had been unjust. This act was seen as a symbolic restoration of his reputation. The movie takes some creative liberties, especially in how events are structured and how certain characters are portrayed. Timelines are compressed, conversations are dramatized, and emotions are heightened to serve the narrative. However, the core historical events remain accurate. What makes Oppenheimer so powerful is not just its historical accuracy, but its exploration of responsibility, morality, and the cost of scientific progress. It asks difficult questions about whether knowledge should always be used simply, because it can be. The story also highlights how individuals can become trapped by the very achievements that make them famous. Oppenheimer's brilliance brought him recognition, but also lifelong guilt and controversy. In the end, Oppenheimer is not just a film about a bomb. It is a story about power, fear, ambition, and the consequences of human choices. It reminds us that scientific progress and ethical responsibility are deeply connected. The real story behind the movie shows that history is rarely simple. Here